Another thing I wanted to take care of, to make as sure as possible that when I brake I'll go in a straight line, I remembered that one of the rear brake shoes was actually on backwards. I believe I replaced these shoes, and I remember putting them back together in a hurry. So the shoes on this side are on the right way around. The shorter shoe, the primary shoe, is in the front. The longer shoe, the secondary shoe, is in the rear. The few times I've braked really hard, it doesn't go quite in a straight line, so I think this might be the cause. I don't think it's incredibly important, which is why I haven't dealt with it until now, like 3 years later, but I figured now was as good a time as any to fix this. In the vast majority of automotive drum brakes, the shoe with the smaller friction lining faces the front of the vehicle, and the shoe with the longer friction lining faces the rear. The first thing we'll do is spray out some of the brake dust in here. Since I've cleaned these in the past, they're not too terrible. The first thing I'm going to do to clean these out is just dump water over it. And the water will kind of help everything settle to the ground instead of being launched up into the air. And now that the parts are fairly clean, we'll go ahead and pull all the springs off to get to the shoes. And now we can plainly see the long friction lining shoe versus the short. In this case, the backing is identical, it's just the friction lining that's different. So this time, when we reassemble it, the short will be in the front and the long in the back. But first, while it's apart, I'm just gonna spray everything down, wipe it down, and apply a little bit of white lithium grease to moving parts. You know, I'm honestly not sure if I replaced these. There's a lot of meat there, so I'm thinking yes, but I may have just replaced the wheel cylinder. I know I did that. I actually can't quite remember if I replaced these. I probably did. They look like they're in pretty good shape, so either way, it doesn't seem like they're super old or anything, and they're definitely not super worn. Okay, let's get this thing back together. I'm gonna make a triple shoe. Long shoe in the back, short shoe in the front. And just look over everything, make sure everything is right where it's supposed to be. And it's really handy to be able to reference the other side if anything goes wrong or you get confused. But I think we are in business. Now I'm just going to go spray out the drum with brake clean and reassemble this. And I'm going to put a little bit of anti-seize on the mating surface of the hub, emphasis on a little bit. Sometimes it can be a little hard to get back on that first time if the shoes are spread farther out, or if they're new, or if they're just not quite where they need to be. So that seems like it went on okay. Let's go ahead and put on the other side drum, and then we will test the brakes and make sure the parking brake is set right. While this side is apart, we're gonna go ahead and clean it off too. To set up the parking brake, what I'm going to do is set it one click at a time and feel the resistance on each side. Everything should turn freely when nothing is applied, and after maybe 2 or 3 clicks you shouldn't be able to turn it by hand any longer. It's let up already. So this brake is set, but the right side still turns with a bit of force applied. That means this one is a bit tighter than the other side now. With working automatic adjusters in these drum brakes, all we really have to do is make sure the brakes are applying properly and get it close. I just heard the adjuster click and now both sides are pretty even. Sometimes you'll have to drive it around and step on the brakes and forward and reverse and do some funny things, but most of the time, if you just set the parking brake a couple times, hit the brake a couple times, everything will adjust properly. And of course, one of the most important things is to make sure they rotate freely and without any dragging of the brakes while nothing is applied. So now both sides are under tension at the same time, our brakes are adjusted, and we're good to go. Even before installing the supercharger onto this car, I had been concerned about the tires. The 2 fronts were 225/70/15s that I got for free with the snowflake wheels. There was some cracking starting on the sidewalls that was really concerning me. The rear tires were 235/75/15s that I had purchased used. The tread was a bit worn down and the pattern didn't exactly lend itself to traction on this car. Anything but the slowest acceleration out of a turn would spin a tire. I decided that I would at least replace the 2 more concerning tires, the front ones, before installing the supercharger. I bought 2 255/60/15s and installed them on the rear. I preferred the look of the taller tires, but these really aren't bad, and the slightly lower profile sidewall should help a little bit with handling. The wider tread and more appropriate tread pattern should also help with grip. After getting the supercharger installed, I drove it a little while like that and then elected to replace the other 2 tires. I decided to go a little bit wider for the rears and got 2 275/60/15s of the same tire model. After getting the tires mounted and balanced, I installed them and checked the clearance. I went through and checked front tire clearance on both sides, and it seems good. It's close, but it's good enough. I like the look of these tires. They seem to match the car pretty well. They're about as small as I'd want to go to be able to keep that muscle car look. These tires do come pretty close to everything, but as long as we keep enough pressure in them so they don't squish too much, I'm thinking they shouldn't hit. Even in the rain, I haven't had any traction problems with these tires, except of course when I asked for it. So at least I'm not accidentally spinning tires everywhere I go now. Now that the car has new tires and the brake shoes have been repositioned, we can check those 2 jobs off of the list.